This man might just be the stingiest person on the planet. Imagine walking 8 miles to work every day just to save 20 cents, or getting so angry over paying for a meal that he actually stabbed the waiter. It's absolutely insane. Anyway, let's dive into this wild video. The film opens with a couple arguing. The woman accuses the man of overspending. She tells him he keeps buying useless things while they barely have food at home. If they continue spending like this, she warns, they'll end up broke with nothing left to raise their child. She's due to give birth in a week. She even talks to the baby in her belly, asking it not to be like its father, and to learn how to save money instead of wasting it. The baby is born, and short flashbacks take us through Francois's childhood years. He grows up extremely stingy, trying to save every penny he can. He even uses expired protection just to avoid spending money on new ones. By the time he becomes an adult, nothing about him has changed. He works as a musician and violin teacher, always trying to earn extra money from his students. He uses dozens of coupons to buy groceries at the supermarket, and he walks all the way home, refusing to even take the bus. On his way back, a neighbour spots him and offers him a ride. Francois gets in and starts chatting with him. He asks the neighbour if he's done his shopping for the whole month, since the back seats are filled with groceries. The neighbour laughs and says that all those items will barely last 3 days, at best. He has 6 kids, and they go through food like crazy. When they arrive in the neighbourhood, Francois is not well liked. His neighbours make threatening gestures, hinting that they might even harm him. Once home, Francois eats only half portions to avoid wasting food and keeps the lights off to minimise his electricity bills. The next day at work, a new musician named Valerie approaches him and compliments his violin skills. She asks for his help, explaining that she has never been part of an orchestra before. Francois helps her, and they play a piece together. After practice, Valerie asks if he'd like to grab a drink with her sometime. Later, Francois is lying on a couch while a man sits in a chair behind him. Francois talks about Valerie, and the man suggests inviting her to a restaurant, saying she seems like a nice woman for him. At first, it seems like the man is his therapist, but he is actually a bank clerk. Francois asks how much money he has in his account, and the clerk says it's around 250,000 euros. True to his stingy nature, Francois insists he must save more and only withdraws 50 euros. Francois visits the parents of one of his students, who own a restaurant and owe him money. He tells them that they should treat him and his friend to a meal one night to make up for the money they owe for their son's lessons. That evening, Francois, Valerie, and the other musicians perform a live show. After the performance, a young girl named Laura approaches Francois and asks for his autograph. Francois signs the autograph for her, but is waiting for Valerie to arrive. When he sees her, he asks Valerie out on a date for Tuesday night. Francois leaves, and the other musicians tease Valerie, asking if she's going out with him. When she says yes, they laugh and tell her to bring her credit card. Back at home, Laura has followed Francois. She tells him that she is his daughter. Francois doesn't believe her, thinking she's trying to sell something. But Laura reminds him of her mother, Carol, and Francois reluctantly takes her in. He calls Carol to confirm, and she assures him that Laura is indeed his daughter, explaining that the protection they used back then had expired and was therefore defective. Francois's phone credit runs out and the call drops. He prefers using free extra-minute calls whenever possible. Now alone with his daughter, it's clear she has an idealised view of him, very different from reality. She believes he is generous, helping orphans and caring for the planet. Francois quickly rushes to his neighbour's door and asks to use his phone. He calls Carol again, and she admits that she didn't tell Laura the truth about her father. How could she explain that he is the most miserly person she has ever met? Francois returns home to find all the lights on. He tells Laura she can't stay there, but she offers to pay for the room, and Francois charges her 140 euros. The next day, Francois fills the house with sticky notes to remind Laura of his strict house rules. For example, they can't bathe every day, and they can't use hot water freely. When he sees Laura taking a bath while the boiler is running, he turns the hot water off completely. Francois visits his banker and tells him about his daughter, suspecting that she came to claim his fortune. The banker suggests that she might have simply wanted a chance to meet her father. Later, Francois returns home and tells Laura that he plans to go out that evening. Excited, Laura tries to change his appearance and takes him to his wardrobe, only to discover that he has no other clothes besides what he's wearing. Francois takes Valerie to the restaurant where they were supposed to eat for free, but Valerie is allergic to most of the foods. She suggests another seafood restaurant down the road and Francois reluctantly agrees to go. They look at the menu and every dish is expensive, but they order and eat anyway. Valerie couldn't finish her food, but Francois had her covered as he pulled out a nylon bag to pack the leftovers, leaving the lady puzzled. When it's time to pay the bill, Francois feels unwell. He even imagines stabbing the waiter with a fork and smashing the door with an axe to escape paying. But it's all a hallucination. Later, he visits the restroom and notices a fire alarm. In the next scene, people are running out of the restaurant, drenched from the chaos. Francois manages to escape without paying for dinner. Valerie tells him to get a taxi and hails one. Francois helps her into the taxi and says he'll take another one since he's heading in the exact opposite direction. On his way home, he calls his banker and complains that he ruined the night, even though he likes Valerie. The next day at the conservatory, one of Francois' fellow musicians is retiring, and everyone has contributed money to buy him a gift. The retiree walks up to Francois and thanks him for nearly 20 years of friendship. However, another musician points out that Francois didn't contribute to the gift. Francois claims he wanted to give a personal present and hands him a book, which had previously been given to him by one of his students. When the retired musician opens the book, he reads a dedication actually written for Francois by his student's parents. Everyone realizes that Francois tried to deceive them and he is publicly humiliated. Later that night, the entire neighborhood calls a meeting and forcibly bursts into Francois' house since he has never attended any before. They tell him he needs to pay around 3,000 euros for neighborhood maintenance. Francois leaves the living room trying to figure out a way to declare himself bankrupt. Meanwhile, Laura shares her own version of events. She tells everyone they should be ashamed for forcing Francois to pay, as he is saving money to help orphaned children in Mexico. After hearing this, all the neighbors change their minds about Francois and tell him to keep his money. He can repay them when he's able to. Francois asked his daughter where the story came from, and she said her mother had told it to her since childhood. She had even done a school presentation about her dad supporting an orphanage in Mexico. But stingy Francois knew her mother had made it up, because such a thing was impossible for him. The next day, Laura tells him that they even want to support his cause. One neighbor even offers Francois their car so he can drive to work. Later, Francois' band has another live performance to attend. Just before they begin, Francois calls Laura to remind her about something he forgot to mention regarding the bathroom cabinet, when suddenly he hears voices in the background. Laura explains that his neighbor and his 6 kids are there. She invited them in because they were struggling to repay their loan and had to temporarily leave their house. Francois feels completely stressed and wants to go home, but they tell him that if he leaves the concert, he must provide a full refund. Francois jumps into his seat and starts playing his violin at double speed to get it over with. The rest of the band follows his lead and they finish the concert quickly. The maestro worries that his career is ruined, but the host assures him that he is an innovator with a bright future. Francois asks if anyone can drive him home and Valerie offers to do so. When he arrives, he finds all the lights on, along with every electrical device in use. Even though his neighbor sees him as a hero, Francois passes out, overwhelmed by thoughts of the bills he has to pay. When he wakes up, Valerie is taking care of him and tells him that she knows about the orphans he has been helping. She also reveals that she has told everyone at the conservatory, who had been speaking ill of him without knowing the truth. Valerie explains that an NGO has invited her to perform and needs someone to play a duet with her. She assures him that everything will be paid for and that he can bring Laura along to listen to him play. Francois and Laura arrive at the event and see Valerie giving a speech. A few moments later, she joins their table and asks Francois for help in encouraging people to donate. Francois is hesitant, but eventually takes the podium. He admits that he is not a perfect person and cannot teach anyone moral lessons. However, he expresses sympathy for those who want to help others but feel unable to do so. He continues by saying that everyone can change, then takes out his checkbook to write a donation. Francois initially plans to write a check for 50 euros, but the crowd cheers for him to give 3,000 euros, and he ultimately writes that amount. Right after that, Francois goes to the restroom and tears the check into small pieces. Laura walks in to congratulate him, and when Francois leaves, she discovers the torn pieces of the check. Francois and Valerie perform beautifully together, and after the event, they share their first kiss. On the way home, Francois is happy and tells Laura that things might actually work out between him and Valerie. However, Laura has changed and feels disappointed. When they get home, she tells him she has to go to work to pay the rent for her room. Francois accidentally finds a drawing that Laura kept from her childhood and realizes that he has been a hero in her eyes. However, he also discovers a text message on her phone in which she tells her mother that he won't give anything away and that they'll have to steal it from him. Francois confronts them and learns that Laura has been living with only one kidney and needs a transplant. In the following days, Francois tries to reconnect with his daughter, but she tells him that her father is dead, along with her childhood. Francois is completely different from the father she had imagined. Francois walks away, and Carol tells Laura that he took the tests and is a compatible kidney donor. He has also agreed to give her his kidney. Laura runs after him and their relationship is restored. The operation is successful and everything goes well. Francois continues performing live with Valérie and their relationship is firmly established. The film ends by showing that Francois has become a true donor for the orphans in Mexico, though he still finds ways to pinch a few coins here and there. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss any of our new videos. Thanks for watching and see you next time.